Hey guys, David Robinson here. Welcome to the apartment investing journey. As usual, we've got another great episode for you today. I've got Jeff Anzalone with me today. Jeff, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate you spending a few minutes with me.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Dr. Jeff Anzalone is a full-time practicing periodontist in the great state of Louisiana. He's also the author and founder of DebtFreeDoctor.com. And I'm really excited to have him on the show to talk about his journey in a very demanding profession, and how he was able to become debt free as a practicing periodontist and also start investing passively to achieve financial freedom. So, Jeff, let's back up. If you don't mind, let's hear your backstory. If you can, tell us a little bit about how this all started for you and what your life looked like at the beginning, and then bring us forward from there.
Yeah, I think the best place to start is about a couple of weeks from when I got finished with my training in New Orleans. We had a 2-month old. We had already purchased a home, like an interest-only loan, because that was before 2008. So I knew a banker friend, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I know the group you're going to be going in with. Sign this paper." It was easy. $300,000 student loan debt, and they called me about 2 weeks before I finished to tell me that basically the deal was off the table.
Hmm.
And you've already got a house, 2-month old, you got all this debt. But the worst part, I guess, for me was, in dental school, medical school, law school, they don't teach you anything about running a business or a practice.
Mm-hmm.
I was counting on, them to teach me. But being from a small town in Louisiana, word got out, and one of the guys reached out to me, another dental specialist. He sort of took me under his wing. He let me rent space from him. Luckily, I didn't have to take out any more loans, so that was nice. And he kind of started teaching me the ropes. And he knew that I eventually wanted to start my own practice, but I was able to work there for like 2 years. And during that time, I was, writing everything down, how to run a practice, all that. And when I looked up one day, I had a whole notebook full of stuff. And actually, I turned that into my first, one of my first books. Very easy title, What They Don't Teach You in Dental School, because literally it was everything they don't teach you, non-clinical. So that was actually kind of my first passive income stream, because, once I did it, it's still paying me a little bit each month from Amazon, but not much. But it was
And
cool.
what was that book? It was like how to start a practice, or what was the book?
Yeah, What They Don't Teach You in Dental School.
Oh, that was the actual title. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
that was the title. Yeah.
Okay.
And just basically all the stuff that if you were to get out, what you would do in order to start a
Mm.
practice. So we at the time in my residency, we were listening to Dave Ramsey. So that was really all I knew as far as about financial education. So we followed his 7 baby steps, did the emergency fund, did the debt snowball, got out of debt, eventually paid off the house. And then it was kind of like, now what? So about that time, we were snow skiing in Colorado, Beaver Creek, and I had a minor wrist injury. And that was the first time that I kind of thought, what would I do if I couldn't practice? How would I pay the bill? I have disability insurance, but that didn't kick in for like, I don't know, 60 or 90 days. And, it's funny, you never think about, especially when you're a kid growing up, I've got 2 teenagers, you never think about getting hurt until, you get hurt.
Hmm.
So I knew something had to be done, didn't have a clue what to do, where to start. And I just started looking at what other successful, wealthy people did. And two things stood out. The first one was the majority of them, I think it was like 90 plus percent of them had real estate in their portfolio. And at that point, I had zero, except for my primary home. And then the second was, these guys had like 6, 8, 10 or more streams of income.
Mm.
I only had the income from the practice. So that really, because there's so much information out there online and like your podcast and YouTube channels, it's like, where do you start? Well, it really helped me narrow it down to real estate.
Mm,
But this was like 2000, maybe 14, 2015. All I thought was, okay, I got to go out and start buying houses and apartments. That's what I thought. That was the only way I thought real estate was. So luckily, I went to a meeting in Dallas, and I thought I was going there to learn how to flip houses or buy duplexes or whatever. But it was all about all the other stuff, and a lot of it had to do with passive investing, which I'd never heard of.
mm,
There was some syndication stuff, there was hard money lending, and other different things that when I walked away there, I still didn't know what in the world was going on, but at least I kind of knew that there was options to where I didn't have to deal. I deal with patients all day long, and I didn't have to deal with any tenants if I didn't want to. So that was really nice, and I could still get a lot of benefits, tax benefits, passive income, that you could get. And so I started doing a little crowdfunding, and that was when it got, it was pretty popular. Realty Shares back then was a pretty popular site, patch of land. Started doing some little deals, $2,000, $5,000. So I decided to step it up. Did a apartment syndication in Tulsa on Realty Shares, 50,000 minimum. And about 2 years later, I finally got the email that every investor had lost all their money, completely went under. So they didn't really disclose that it was a really bad area, crime area. More people were moving out than moving in. So the guy thought, hey, if I dump a ton of money in this apartment, maybe people will move back. Well, they didn't. So he left. So they tried to get our money back, couldn't. And as you can imagine, of course, that was a very tough loss. I could have just quit, given up. But I really realized that I didn't know what I was doing at all. So, it was really on me. So I didn't invest anything for about a year after that and just really started learning. And I started a blog, and I started writing down things that I thought people in my position should know. And then I started doing some investments, but after I met the people, after I met the group, the syndicator, it was kind of like, hey, I know where you live. I know, I'm
right.
I didn't
You're a
really
real person.
it wasn't like, hey, if something happens, I'm coming after you sort of thing, but they kind of knew like my backstory and hey,
Yeah.
so, and I think it's important you really get to know somebody if you're going to give them six figures or more, know about them, their philosophy, how they are as a person. When you meet somebody, you can kind of tell, you kind of get that vibe from people, which you couldn't do that on those crowdfunding sites.
Yeah.
Which is why I avoid those now. I'm not saying they're bad. I'll never do another crowdfunding deal. But so then the blog started taking off. People started sharing links and stuff. And then I kept having people email me, Jeff, this is great. We're learning a lot, but we just don't have time to find people to work with or deals. Would you ever mind sharing what you're personally investing in? So I said, sure. So I started a separate group called a Passive Investor Circle group. And the only thing that I do is any deal that I invest in throughout the year, I just basically just put it up there and they kind of read about it. Kind of like, some of these stock buying people that buy and sell stocks all the time. A lot of times they'll post what they're buying or selling. So you can kind of look and see what their portfolio is. Started a YouTube channel about a year ago, and I really enjoyed doing that because you can make a connection when you're looking at somebody like this, and that's really starting to take off. So which is basically kind of led me to now.
Well, that's great. I appreciate you giving me, just a brief synopsis of your world. I want to go back a little ways. So you had mentioned you came out of dental school with $300,000 in student loan debt. You had mentioned that you had bought a house. Is that correct? So you had 300 grand in student loan debt, and you bought a house. You had a little baby, you and your wife, and just one little baby. Is that correct?
who actually turned 17 today.
Okay. All right. All right. So you then connected with someone that allowed you to work. Did you work inside of their practice for those first 2 years, or did you just work alongside them when you were
Yeah,
those first 2 years?
he was a different type of specialist, so he just had
Mm,
extra space, and he kind of helped me network with the other dentists to get patients in there. One thing that I didn't mention, I used in high school and college, I had a lawn service. So I actually went back to some of those people and started cutting grass again. So I was a very highly
interesting.
trained yard guy. But
Wow.
you got to do what you got to do to make money, you know?
Yeah. So, and just to clarify, because you glossed over it a little bit, your intent was to go and work for another practice. Is that correct? When you got out of dental school, and then that deal fell through. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I was supposed to join a partnership. The deal
Mm.
fell through and then left us kind of out to dry.
Gotcha. Okay. So here you are with all this debt. You've got a little baby. You got 300 grand in student loan debt. You don't have a job or a source of income. So you have to start being resourceful, and you figured out a way to make that work. And you ended up building your own practice. And you talked about going through Dave Ramsey's program, paying off all the debt. Um, if you were to go back and if you were guiding someone that's coming out of a similar situation, right? They've just got out of medical school, or maybe they're even a couple years out of medical school or dental school or whatever it might be. They still are laden with a pretty big burden of student loan debt. Maybe they now have a house with a mortgage. Is there anything that you would do different, or how you would guide them as far as real estate investing, cash flow, and building wealth is concerned, that you would do different than what you did originally?
Yeah, I think my situation a little different because, you know, most of these guys, they get out of school or training and they go to a job that's paying, you know, right off the bat 6 figures, which I was making zero. So I had
Mm-hmm.
to really start off low. But I think once I got to the point where we got, you know, comfortable with, you know, paying aggressively on debt, you know, maxing out. We had a practice, like a practice retirement account, but I had all this extra money each month. And I was just putting it back in the stock market. I
Mm.
didn't know anything about real estate or passive investing. So I would have wished I would have known about, you know, real estate at that time to where I could have also been investing back then for cash flow
Mm.
because I was probably, I know I wouldn't be practicing right now. I would have been completely financially free and moving on to other stuff. So
Yeah.
that's what I would have done differently.
Got it. And in hindsight, you followed Dave Ramsey's sort of, guidance of, being completely debt free. Would you have done anything different in regards to paying off all your debt? Would you have started investing now, or started investing right away instead of paying off all that debt, or would you still pay off all the debt?
I would have, I'm pretty debt averse. So I would have paid down on it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
aggressively. Probably wouldn't have focused so much on paying off the house now that I know, you know, about that. But at least the consumer debt.
Mm-hmm.
But again, at the same time, also you know, paying, you know, let's just say your payment's $1,000 a month for a student loan. I'd have paid like 2 grand. You know, I would have paid more on it. Plus, I would have been investing along the way, so you don't miss all those years
Yeah.
of you know of the compounding effect of whether you're going to the stock market or real estate or both.
And so, just to clarify, you definitely would have paid off the consumer debt, but as far as the student loan debt, maybe you're doing a combination of paying off some of that, paying that payment with a little bit of extra, and also investing on the side is sort of your mentality at this point.
Yeah, because I mean, we uh, dentists, physicians, attorneys. I mean, we're used to living off of nothing when you get out of training. So you go from living off of nothing to making 6 figures like that. that shouldn't be that hard to do to come up to have that extra money to do that, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so you just have to have a plan. You got to be disciplined. You know, I talk to people on a weekly basis that they've been practicing for a while and they don't really have a plan. It's like, yeah, I want some passive income. I'd like to retire early. It's very vague, and we got to really narrow it down. You know, having a goal like, okay, let's focus on replacing your expenses with passive income.
Hmm.
And then they really start thinking, okay, well, yeah, and then they go, okay, let me figure out how much I make, how much I spend a month. And, you know, if you're like me and you put all the household expenses on a credit card, you know, you can go to the website right now and do a report for last year and you see exactly what your expenses are, you know,
Hmm.
and if you got a mortgage, just add that to it. It's not hard and start there and then work your way backwards.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, a lot of people, they just come up with a $10,000 a month number. You know, hey, yeah, I would like to have 10,000 a month coming in. Okay, well then at least we got something to work towards, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you have individuals reach out to you through your blog and YouTube channel, um, what are the biggest roadblocks that you hear from people in them getting started, or yeah, just getting started in the investing space?
Right here in between their ears. I talked to a urologist yesterday from North Carolina, and he knew all kinds of stuff. I mean, he knew cap rates and this and that, and uh, waterfall structures. I'm like, man, how long have you been doing this? Well, I haven't done anything yet. There you
Mm,
go. I was like, dude, you got to take action. He's like, I know. I was like, you got to pull the trigger.
yeah.
Just think about it. If you went through medical school or dental school, you got all that training and you graduate, and then you just sit at home on your couch. What's the point?
Hmm.
You got to get off your butt and you got to do something, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's move the conversation forward a little bit here. I want to get to this place where you started to explore real estate. I think you mentioned it was roughly 2014, 2015 when you went to that first meeting in Dallas. I mean, I know that the wrist injury while you were skiing was sort of the catalyst for you to start thinking about your financial future. But what caused you to go to that meeting in Dallas? And how were you even introduced to the meeting in Dallas?
the guy was a dentist. Well, he used to be a dentist that he taught real estate to other
Mm,
dentists. So
okay.
he would advertise on, you know, websites and that sort of thing, and that's how that came about.
Okay, perfect. And and so you had your first experience in the crowdfunding space. So you learn about all kinds of different investing strategies in this conference. Almost confuse yourself to it sounds like. But you did decide, hey, you know what? Let's dip my toe in the water by utilizing one of these crowdfunding sites where I can just put a little bit of money in, sort of test how it
Mhm.
goes. It sounds like things were going okay there, and then you decided to get involved in a deal where it required a $50,000 investment in a syndication. It goes south, you lose all your money. You take a year off, you back up, and then you say, all right, I'm going to, learn everything I need to learn about this to be successful moving forward. And you mentioned in that stage that you started to like get to know sponsors and you started to blog and you started your passive investing group. And so this has been a process. So let me back up and just set some timelines here. When was it that you lost the money in that deal? Roughly what year?
2016
Okay.
ish. Yeah.
And so, are we talking roughly 2017, 2018 when you started to really sort of formulate your own investing strategy around this and started blogging and writing a book?
Yeah. I think the blog started the beginning of 2018,
Okay.
roughly,
Perfect. Okay.
um, or maybe the end of 2017, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I had the timeline right.
Mhm.
So let's talk then about your investing strategy as it is today. Like, how do you go about investing passively as a full time practicing periodontist? High demand on your time, on your energy, on your mental capacity, and still being able to invest. Like, what does that look like for you today?
Well, a good bit of my time during the week, 25 plus hours, I spend on real estate.
Mm,
I like it. I'm always researching, doing the research because it takes me probably 6 to 8 hours to write an article. That includes figuring out what to write on. That includes researching if I need to interview people and then actually writing it. So you can imagine going through that process. Let's just say it's on cap rate. You can imagine going through that process has really help educate me. And you're doing this over and over again. And then you're taking that material, making a YouTube video out of it. So I'm kind of lucky because I've gotten to the point now where people come to me instead of me having to come to them, sort of thing for real estate deals. And I had two people text me this morning about some duplexes and some self storage. So I just enjoy connecting with people, and I connect with you, and then connect with somebody else, and they connect me elsewhere, and it was kind of like that one of those deals. I got connected with this person, that person that knew Grant Cardone, that I was able to get him and interview him. So if I would have never been doing this to begin with, I would have never gotten interviews like that. But I I'm kind of more, like I said, risk averse. I like to do investments that have a proven track record. I don't really do much like new development, new construction. Not saying that's a bad thing, but I want something that if I put my money in, I'm going to start getting paid, 4 to 6 months after it closes. I want some cash flow. You're not going to get as much. It's not going to be as high as return as something but the risk is lower.
hmm.
So that's kind of what I'm looking at now. I'm in mostly multifamily, a couple hotels, just did a self-storage deal. And this year is the year of a mobile home park. So with Sam Zell and Warren Buffett getting into it, so I've connected with people that know what they're doing in that space. They have millions of dollars invested in it, so they're teaching me. And it's really interesting because being from Louisiana, there's a trailer park everywhere around here, and didn't realize how profitable those could be.
Mm. And so, just to understand your business model, are you strictly a passive investor, or do you get involved as a general partner in these deals as well?
A little bit of both. Some of the sponsors, they've allowed me in the past to um, help them bring some investors to them. If some of them don't, and so I'm kind of a co-GP on some of those deals, but some of the other ones, the older ones, I'm just a limited partner.
Got it. Okay. And how do you go about vetting your deals? You alluded to the fact that it was more important to you, after your experience on that first crowdfunding deal,
Mhm.
for you to actually get to know the sponsor. So I assume that that's part of your process. But how do you go about vetting a deal at this point?
Well, kind of think about like if you or one of your family members, your wife or something has some sort of rare disease or rare cancer, what would you do? How would you find somebody to treat them? You would start online. You would start finding people, maybe finding people that went to those people, how they treated them, and have been successful. So it's kind of like that. I talk to people. I want to find out they, kind of like you want to get a mutual fund that's only been out a year or been out 15 years. So like somebody with a longer track record that have had deals go full cycle. I'd like to know what they thought the projected returns were before and after to see if they were pretty close. Actually, I got an email yesterday about a deal that I did, I think in 2018, that was selling. And I went back to look, and it actually performed better than they initially thought. So this is the third one that has gone full cycle with this sponsor. So things like that, want to talk to their current investors, and then investors that have been with them a while. I want to meet with them. I want to know about their business plan, that sort of thing. So after you do it a while, it's not as hard as like when you first get started.
Are there any red flags that where, let's say, a deal is presented to you, as you start subscribing to all these different sponsors, email lists, you're going to start to have your inbox pretty full of opportunities to invest in, right?
Mhm.
Are there any red flags for you that would keep you from taking action on a deal?
Um, again, I think if it's a really brand, and I'm not saying don't invest with brand new sponsors, but if it's a newer sponsor, I tend to shy away from those. If you look at it and you're like, holy cow, look at those returns, and if it looks too good to be true, it probably is, especially as you know in this day with cap rates really compressed, especially with multifamily. So there, those after you look at them a while, things that really stand out, it kind of makes you go, because as you know, you can put down any type of number and kind of massage it any way you want. So I think after you look at them a while, you'll kind of be able to kind of tell.
Yeah. So, what would you say to a lot of the doctors, medical professionals out there that sort of have the mentality? I think it's a common mentality in the medical profession to, dump money into a 401k and let it ride, stay focused on your practice, and hope that you come out on the other end in a good place. Any thoughts for people that are sort of taking that path of, dumping their money into a 401k and trying to make as much income as they can?
Most of the people that I talk to on a weekly basis, they do that because that's and like me, that was the only thing that I knew to do. So if you don't know any other way, then like just like when I used to listen to Dave Ramsey, he was all about paying off your house quick. That was the only thing that I thought you're supposed to do until you learn that there's other ways out there. So once you learn that you can replace, especially with physicians and dentists, there's no reason with your income you shouldn't be able to be financially free within 7 years, 10 at the most. So you just kind of look at it. If you're happy with the way that you're going and you want to work till you're 65 or 70, and you want to kind of put your retirement in the hands of the government, and anybody can throw out a tweet and the stock market can go down 1,000 points. If you want to risk your retirement on that, go for it. But if you want to take control and you want to buy something that you can ride by and look at it and see that all the tenants are paying you money, and something that you can pass down to your kids, you can teach your kids about it, and you want a bunch of passive income coming in. And think about it, if you had money coming in and it didn't really matter if you went to work or not, how much better would you be at work? You'd be in a much better mood. You wouldn't be worried about money. If somebody couldn't afford something, hey, I'll do it for you. No, no problem. I'll take care of it for you. You're just a better person. So that's
Mm.
what I like about it. Plus, the more you make, the more that you're able to give to and help too. So I think that's definitely another reason to consider it.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, I've enjoyed our conversation thus far. I want to start winding things down here a bit, but I've got a few final questions for you. As it relates to your real estate investing, and maybe even just your business of real estate education, not talking about your practice, but either your real estate education business or your investing business, what's the biggest challenge that you're facing right now that we could all learn from?
Probably right now is finding really good deals. At this time, there's a lot of new syndicators out there. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't know what they're doing, and that could, I think, in the long run, that could potentially hurt the passive investor because if they go and get burned, then that'll leave a bad taste in their mouth. So, I tell people I've graduated with 60 dentists and I only let 4 or 5 work on me. They're all dentists, but there's only just a few of them that are good. Just like the different
Hmm.
sponsor groups. So that that's probably the main thing right now. That just lack of and people are always emailing me, or had a guy text me a couple of days ago, hey, you got any deals you're getting ready to get into? And there's just not a whole lot of inventory out there right now.
And so, what do you do in those moments of low inventory, low deal flow? You just sit on cash. What do you do?
Yeah, just keep stacking it. And then when an opportunity comes, that's just more money you can put in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. What's something that you're doing in your investing education or investing business that you're just knocking out of the park right now that we could all learn from?
I think probably the YouTube and any business that you have or any maybe side gig or interest that you have, consider looking into that because I just see so many people now are going to YouTube and using that as a search engine. I even got my dad, who can barely work a phone. He's like, oh yeah, I couldn't figure out how to put something together, so I went to YouTube or whatever, and there's a video, walking me through how to put together a deer stand or a deer feeder or something. So I think more and more people are using video as search, and we're actually getting ready to revamp our practices website and use more custom videos because that's just what people are looking for.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So, just from a selfish perspective, what are one or two tips that you would give for someone who's looking to utilize YouTube for their business?
I read the book last year, Who Not How. So we're always, and that's why I didn't do a YouTube channel forever because, like, well, how do I do it? How do I edit it? And I just found a who to do it for me. So all I got to do is take my, webcam or my phone. If you could talk into it, you can do a YouTube channel. There's people on Fiverr that can edit for you. They can do the little thumbnail, the little picture when you pull it up for you. So that's the easiest way to get started. But I do think that no matter what you do, if you do the YouTube, I think that even though if you're not really successful with it, at least going through the process and starting it, trying something different should help you in the long run.
Yeah, love it. Well, look, Jeff, I appreciate you coming on. Want to be respectful of your time here, but just hearing about your story and your personal journey, the mindset that you've had along the way, and some of the strategies that you've implemented to help you get out of debt, as well as to start investing and really doing well, with managing your time and the challenges that you have between the practice as well as your investing business and really enjoyed our conversation. What's the best way for our listeners to connect with you and learn more about what you have going on?
I've got a free passive income guide. So people that are just kind of hearing about this when we get started, they can download that at debtfreedr.com/free guide.
Perfect. We'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. So if you've enjoyed the conversation that we've had with Jeff today, go down into the show notes right now, click on one of those links, and download his e-guide. Jeff, an honor to have you on the show. Thanks for spending some time with us and sharing your journey with us, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on. And not every day you can talk to a legendary NBA player.
That's right. Thanks, Jeff.